Probably the biggest news in the computer world this past year has been the new M1 series of Macs that have been released. They have the new Apple M1 chip. They've moved the company away from Intel and back to an in-house chip. Lots of nervous people watching this unfold, especially with the switch from x86 architecture to ARM-based. But here I am, 6 months into owning an M1. How's it been going for me as a content creator? Well, it's been good. But as with all Macs, it seems, yeah, there's a fly in the soup. We're going to get into the issue that the new M1s have in a bit, but first let's talk about what you can expect from these M1s if you create content. Honestly, it's seamless. Base model Mac, easily taking on 4K video seems like a joke, but yeah, it actually does it. My PC is only a couple years old and it's spec'd out, and it struggles to keep up, chugging as I scan the timeline of Premiere. There's no such issue with Mac. Of course, yes, you can run the full suite of Adobe products on the new M1. Kinda. Most of the programs work with Rosetta 2, the program that translates the x86-based programs to ARM, though it can be spotty at best. And there are several known issues with the programs, most notably Photoshop and Illustrator. Now, Adobe is slowly rolling out fixes for these, but considering the job at hand, it might be some time, especially for Premiere. But you don't buy a Mac with the sole intent to use native PC programming on it, do you? I mean, come on. Honestly, the apps available for Mac are just as powerful, just as simple, and sometimes just plain better. Now, of course, this is a big statement that made me a few enemies, I am sure, but if you're already going down the Mac rabbit hole, might as well just jump in and at least try them out. But of course, this isn't a comparison video. So how about more on my experiences? Well, I considered a bit of a risk with the transition over to Mac. It hasn't really worked out as one. Now, of course, there was prior knowledge of the creative suite of apps, but aside from Logic Pro X, it's pretty easy to get into this ecosystem and become fluent with it. Even Logic Pro X, as with all DAWs, has a learning curve, but some of the benefits just may outweigh the downside of learning them. Personally, I love a lot of the plug-and-play elements of Logic, and their standard plugins are just fantastic. Now, I'm getting better at Final Cut Pro, and soon I feel like I'm going to be able to move over to that full-time very soon. And aside from the smoothness of the experience, the only other thing I can say is, oh, it's fast. Easily beating out my older PC in workload and render times, though I don't have a new PC to compare it to, but that is the catch in all this, isn't it? You really can't buy a new PC these days, and if you do, well, the Apple tax is looking more and more sane. Now, these things perform despite what seems to be rather underwhelming specs, and how does that happen? Your base model comes with only a 250 gig SSD and only 8 gigs of RAM. Most people that use PC just chuckled at that, but hear me out. The SSD issue is really no problem, as you can get some pretty fast external drives that won't miss a beat. And that RAM, which seems like the biggest problem, has a unique little magic baked in. It's called unified memory, basically meaning that the memory itself is baked in, which means it's faster. And by faster, I mean a lot faster. And that leads us to this. There is one major flaw that is coming out in the wash, and I like to call it the fly in the soup. And yeah, every release from Apple seems to have the fly in the soup, especially their computer lineups that aren't aimed at pros. Generally, these things take about a year to surface, but this one, well, this one's pretty easy to predict. Now, this fly was first pointed out by Louis Rossmann, or at least that is the first time I saw it. But honestly, if you can trust anyone to give you the full honest answer about an Apple product, it's Louis Rossmann. And the video I'm referring to is linked in the video description in case you want to learn more. So, remember that unified memory? It's baked in, right? Also, the SSD baked in as well. When RAM fills up and it's running faster than the CPU can handle it, it slows down your computer. Well, this is a bit of a different system. This one uses the SSD as a bit of an overflow, so that bottleneck stops being an issue. And while you'll be perfectly fine if you bought this machine to do your light computing, maybe not so much if you're doing something heavier like video editing or even some heavier audio workflows. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a great concept. But here's the problem with it. You see, SSDs have a finite life, meaning they can only be written to so many times before they just die. And if it's RAM doing the writing, that's a whole bunch of writing and overwriting that's going to be happening. And remember I said, the SSD is baked in. That means when this SSD decides to reach its predetermined end of life, well, so does the computer. And it's not just the laptops, it's also the Mini. It's also the M1 iMac. So then, what should you do? Should you buy the new M1 Mac? Any of them? Well, yeah. Honestly, I personally wouldn't run with the base model again. That said, that extra 8 gigs of RAM in the 16 gig model just might extend the life of your Mac. Might be worth it for the extra couple bucks. Also, Apple Care might be your best friend, considering their unwillingness to fix older issues like this, even though it's technically not an issue. It's actually a feature. Only Apple can do that. Otherwise, they're still fantastic computers, and honestly, maybe your best bet if you're willing to just accept that these might just be 2 to 3 year investments before you're buying them again. Right now, though, they're one of the most powerful computers on the market and an absolute breath of fresh air. So with all that said, I am not upset with my purchase, and I will be slowly moving my stuff over to this ecosystem. Don't worry, I'm not giving up completely on PC. I do like to game once in a while. So what do you think? Let me know down in the comments below. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, hammer that like button like it's your thumb and it's the first time you're using a hammer. You know what I mean. If you loved it though, try the other bigger button. It helps the channel grow, which is a good thing. Cheers, and I will see you in the next video.